Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan. With me, as always, is Logan. How are you today, Logan?
Oh, I am fantastic. I love a good Monday, Jordan. Just soaking it all in. The glory of getting back to work after a long weekend. Just it gets me going, keeps me going. So I'm
Does it?
excited to be even. Well, no, not really, but I was just trying to come in here enthusiastic because Jordan and I like to talk about dark things off the web. So not on the dark web, but
Yeah, not on the dark web. Just
no, just dark things. We're dark souls. We actually don't talk after the show. We just kind of hang up, and this is the
we
only
actually just
interaction.
stare at each other until the file's done uploading.
Yeah. Do people know how dark it is behind the scenes? Right. People
Yeah,
always wonder that, right? That's something I always wonder is how's the relationship between these two people?
not great.
No, not good. Yeah. The current state. I mean, unbelievable, this guy.
Oh man, we are talking the results of Major League Soccer weekend. We are previewing the three finals that take place on Wednesday and looking ahead to see what more can happen in the league as we get closer and closer to the end of the season. As a Philadelphia Union fan, it's one of those, thank God we're almost done this season. It's been a whirlwind roller coaster. And right now they're in a playoff spot, and that was something that last week I was like, I don't think they're going to make it in. Well, they've had some big results the last few days to put themselves in a really good spot. So we'll talk about that. And some teams have clinched playoff spots. I forget where we were in the East, but I know in the West, I think only Galaxy had clinched still. I think just Galaxy and Miami were clinched, at
Yeah, I
least
think it
as
was
of
just
2
one
weeks
and one.
ago.
Yep.
But we now have three teams in each conference that have clinched a playoff spot, and those are Miami, Cincinnati, Columbus, and LA Galaxy, RSL, and Colorado. And we have Kansas City, who was eliminated. And still no teams in the East eliminated. Though, I think we can eliminate the Revolution if you see the clip going around about the team fights going on there on the pitch. And some really on Saturday, they were kind of struggling to show that they have any sense of being able to getting it together. So let's take a look at what happened on Wednesday night. We looked ahead to Wednesday the other day, and we got Atlanta and Miami drawing 2-2. Revs and Montreal drawing 2-2. Philadelphia beat NYCFC 5-1. The Crew beat Toronto 2-0. Orlando beat Charlotte 2-0. Houston and Vancouver went 1-1 draw. SKC beat the Rapids 4-1. Cincy beat Minnesota 2-1. Nashville over Chicago 1-0. RSL beating Dallas 3-2. LAFC struggle. They draw with Austin 1-1. Portland upsets LA Galaxy 4-2. And Seattle, which I said should beat San Jose, draw with San Jose in Seattle 2-2. Then on Saturday, we had NYCFC and Miami drawing 1-1. Charlotte stomping New England 4-0. Columbus had a huge lead on Orlando, but Orlando claws their way back, falls just short like Mufasa. 4-3 for the Crew. Montreal 2-0 over Chicago. Red Bulls in Atlanta 2-2. Houston beat Austin 1-0. LAFC struggle again. Dallas beat them 3-1. Minnesota beat SKC 2-0. Nashville and Cincy draw 2-2. Colorado beat Toronto 2-0. RSL and Portland play to a 3-3 draw. Galaxy, who lost 4-2 to Portland, beat Vancouver 4-2. And St. Louis beat San Jose 2-1. Then on Sunday, Philadelphia beat DC United 4-0. So some crazy results here. As LAFC have really struggled this week. And guess what? They still sit with 49 points. They're in fourth place with Houston and Seattle and Vancouver, all within reach of getting that fourth place spot from LAFC. Now, LAFC still has a game in hand to RSL and Colorado. and actually have 2 games in hand of LA Galaxy. So still some time for LAFC to get right. And the best way that they'll want to get right, Logan, is on Wednesday when they're playing for a trophy. And after last year of losing 3 finals, I'm sure right now they're looking at that and saying, let's break that streak, let's get another cup, and let's get our minds right for a playoff run.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk on X and on some of the MLS
Twitter, yeah.
shows. Yeah. Yeah, Twitter. One day soon, Jordan. That LAFC look exhausted, that they look to be unable, or they're unable to win these cup finals. They've not had success in the last couple 4 losses in finals in their past 4. Which isn't good, obviously. You want the silverware, but Jordan, you and I were talking about how they seem to be the real heavy favorites in the Western Conference, and then they add Olivier Giroud, and I thought for sure that they would challenge Miami for Supporter Shield. I thought they would challenge Miami and end up meeting up with them in MLS Cup. But right now, I mean, this LAFC team is playing a lot of games. That's the problem in getting to all these finals that I think a lot of people are kind of not talking about so much. They're talking about like their struggles in finals, but to get to finals, that means you've got a heavier schedule. You're getting to these last games. You're playing all the games in the tournament that are possible. And again, I think when you're losing that much, it really does start to wear on you. And over the last couple of games, Jordan, they've got 0 wins, 3 losses, and 2 ties. That's the last 5 games that they've played. They just look all out of sorts. They look tired. The reinforcements come, but I just feel like they've not hit on any cylinders lately. And this is not the time to really start to struggle, because this is kind of one of those funks now. We're down to like 3 and 4 games left with some of these teams. It's kind of hard to get out of that hole once you've buried yourself this far. So it'll be interesting. I think the Western Conference obviously is wide open. I think there's a lot of teams that can win it, but LAFC, Jordan, if I had to pick right now, I wouldn't have them getting into the conference finals and maybe not even the conference semis. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how LAFC turns this around. But if they lose again on Wednesday, I'd say that panic meter is going to go up through the roof.
That's what I was going to say. What happens if they lose another cup final on Wednesday? And the thing is, like, you can kind of, I think, ignore a lot of it because of that MLS Cup final. But let's not forget, they almost lost that game at home. As a Philly fan, I'm very aware of how far, how close we were to winning that game.
On the doorstep. Yep.
And we were literally seconds away until Gareth Bale put in that header. So then, if they hadn't won that game and they continued the streak of losing these finals, I think the panic meter would be a little higher right now. It'd kind of be like when the Union kept losing finals, and you're like, man, are they ever going to get a cup? No, not yet. But at least they have that MLS Cup final for LA Galaxy and LAFC. And the thing is, they continue to be in finals. And again, I've always said I'd rather get there than not get there, right? I'm kind of inconsistent with that, though, for like certain sports. For like my Ravens, I almost rather not make it there and lose, because the Ravens have a 100% record in the Super Bowl in their 2 appearances. Don't want to mess that up. But, you know, for LAFC to be in those finals consistently, that's good. That's good. But what we also said, right, was that maybe Marco Reus was going to have the more impact than Olivier Giroud, and so far that is the case, right? Like, LA Galaxy are continuing to fly, and LAFC kind of struggling to hold on a bit. Now, I want to point out, June 3rd, you said LAFC was going to win the West.
I take everything I said back.
That's not going to happen now.
This is a good-looking team. I just feel like they're a little bit of a rut. They'll get out of it. There's
you
4 games left.
You also said on June 3rd that Cincinnati was going to win the East.
I told you, don't write these things down, Jordan. They're bad for the show. our ratings just plummeted.
But what
to
I'll
0.
say is on May 6th, a month
Oh,
before that, you said Messi and Suarez, if they're healthy, will win the Shield and the Cup.
so Logan had no idea what was going on half the time. Like Logan a month later is like, you know what? Let's change the narrative.
Yes, you're
Um,
like,
you're
well,
see, we are a different kind of national show,
we
Jordan.
are a reactionary
We
show.
react, but we also go back and say, you're an idiot, you were wrong. Which Jordan and I have been 100% honest with people. We are okay being wrong. I was wrong.
Yes, we're not like one
We
of
are
those like
not
we're
those.
not like Stephen A. Smith
Right.
like no, I
Right.
actually and like twisted another way,
Yeah.
right? Like
Right. Cincinnati didn't lose it. They took it from them, that kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's that's kind of where I was heading with that. But
I said Seattle on April 22nd. I said Seattle, San Jose, and Dallas will not factor into the playoff chase. I was wrong about
yeah,
one of those.
yeah,
Dallas and San Jose obviously did not really factor much
factoring
in there.
in.
Dallas is still alive technically, but I don't think they're getting in.
No.
But Seattle, like I said last week, we were shocked at how close they are. They're only 3 points off of third place right now. Like they've really risen up. But yeah, no, I always have fun going through some of these notes here of what we had written down. We also were very, very off on our how many points will USA finish Copa America with? You said 6, I said 7. We did not get that many.
No, I do, not to change the subject. Well, it's not really changing it. As far this is a fun debate I've had in other group conversations. So if you're LAFC, right, and you've lost your last 4 final games, you almost. I mean, people are like, you can't do that. You're speaking in hypotheticals that if they would have lost the Union, it would have been 5. But like, at what point do you? Because there are teams, Jordan, that this would be successful if they've gotten to 2 or 3 finals and lost, and we kind of view them as a success. But then we've
Yeah, the
got teams
Union.
like LAFC, yeah, right. So if the Union, Orlando, Cincinnati, even right now, because they've not quite got there yet.
Right.
But LA, like we would consider, okay, you got to 2 finals, maybe that night. But at what point, or are we at the point where at LAFC, Steve Cherundolo just can't finish the job, and we start to look at them in a different light of like they are a good team, but they'll never be a great team because they can't finish these final games because
They
or do
are,
we?
I would say, very close to Dodger territory.
Ooh,
The one that, the people that spend the money
yeah,
and then don't get the results or choke it away, right? Like
yeah.
that's the narrative of the Dodgers. Even though they won
Right.
in 2020,
That's
people
true.
then will say that's not a real World
Yeah,
Series, right?
that's
Like
true.
people say that. If you don't count 2020's World Series, the Dodgers
Yeah,
haven't won one since like the 80s, right?
right.
And they are constantly spending big money and bringing in big stars, just like LAFC is. That's where I would kind of think the narrative would kind of start going, is you would have a lot of people pointing at that. But I think it would be, because the thing is they did win that final against Union, and it, like in that one they were like, it wasn't like one that you can excuse the way a lot of people try to excuse the COVID championships on any of our sports for whatever reason. Even though I'm not somebody that's like that. I'm like, hey, I wanted to see baseball that season. I wanted to see football that season.
It's
I
a little
wanted to see
harder with it that
basketball
year.
that season. Yeah, like, so for some of that stuff, you had to go through totally different things. You weren't at home for your
Neutral
home
sites.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, totally different stuff. And I think that stuff is really, really cool. And like, that'll always be in the history books. A lot of people are so eager to excuse that stuff when it's the teams that they don't like winning it. The Lakers, the Dodgers, right? But what I'll say is, so you can't excuse their MLS Cup win, but like we said before, they were very close to losing that game as well. And you do now have this narrative of them losing finals. The difference with soccer is that it's not like they've lost 3 straight MLS Cup finals, right?
Yeah.
They lost 1 MLS Cup final. The rest of them have been other tournaments that people can always say we didn't actually care about that one, right? So there are some people that will excuse that stuff away. And losing the CONCACAF Champions Cup final, only one MLS team has ever won that, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like an indictment on LAFC for not winning that one. But losing an MLS Cup final, what else did they lose? They lost because they didn't lose the U.S. Open Cup.
Leagues Cup, right?
No, because that was Nashville.
Oh, that's right. So probably was it CONCACAF Champions Cup?
It was CONCACAF Champions Cup. It was
U.S. Open.
Campeones Cup final. So this is one of the ones that crew are playing in Wednesday. It's one game. It's one game. It's not really a final.
Say, no,
right?
That's not a final.
CONCACAF Champions Cup. Oh, and then the actual MLS Cup final. So those are the three finals they lost. One of those is like an actual final of
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like the Champions Cup one, like I said, not a lot of people have won that one. Only Seattle.
Right.
So you can't really get at them for that. I don't think. And the Campeones Cup final, they lose to Tigres. That's a one-off thing that a lot of people don't actually take as really prestigious. It's just the winner of MLS Cup versus the winner of Liga MX. And then you have the actual MLS Cup they lost. But again, they're losing. Like, if it was 3 straight MLS Cup finals, I think there'd be a bit more of a narrative.
They get into the territory. I mean, I guess the Yankees-ish, like, spend a lot of money, don't do much, just kind of sit there idly, because they've got the bank to do it. And Jordan, they're almost down to 5th place. Like, if they lose a game, they got a game in hand on Houston. If Houston gets a point, they'll be in 5th place and now battling for home field advantage. My thing is, like,
that'd be my worry for them, not getting the home field advantage spot.
Yeah. And my big thing with LAFC is that, they're in the same position that Miami is. Like, Miami is the exact same. You could look at them and say, okay, they ponied up, spent a lot of money, and now, Jordan, they're going to now win. They have won Leagues Cup. They're going to win Supporter Shield. They're going to be heavy favorites to win MLS Cup and should win MLS Cup as long as Messi and Suarez are. And even if Messi's not healthy, hell, they've been better with Suarez at this point. It is a fun debate that I think LAFC fans will go, well, we don't have Messi. Well, yeah, but you could have something similar to that because you do have the profile of a team that could go out and get somebody like that. Not saying that they haven't tried, and maybe they have tried. Maybe they did try to allure Messi, but I think Messi always had his mind set on Miami. Ever since we started to hear rumblings of him to MLS, it seemed Miami was the only destination because of where it's located. But yeah, it's just a fun topic, right? Because we don't really have this in MLS yet, where we have like a franchise that is seen as the perennial. I mean, we had the LA Galaxy, but that was when there were less teams. I feel like now, Jordan, we finally got like we've got a big enough league. We've got more consistency and star players where we're starting to see some teams like start to pop up that are like, really, really solid teams that continue to be some of the top teams in the Western Conference, Eastern Conference, in Miami, in Cincinnati, the Union before them, LAFC, right? Seattle for a little bit of time. Like, while I hate that in some other sports, I love it because like it makes them the enemy. They're public enemy. Like Miami feels like public enemy number 1.
Yeah, they do. People are going to be very upset when they win it all.
Yeah, run the table with it all, right? I think Supporter Shield's obviously in the bag at this point, and they'll win MLS Cup, I think.
It's a little closer now. It's only a 6-point lead on the Galaxy. Miami stumbled a bit with 2 draws. If LA Galaxy had beat Portland, we'd be really talking about a close finish here.
Miami's also got a game in hand, though. I give them that.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so let's go ahead and all right, we talked about LAFC. Let's talk about the other LA Galaxy. Gabriel Peck had a big game. He actually won player of the match day, partly thanks to me. I voted for him. But
I was like, when did you start playing for the Galaxy?
a goal and 2 assists from Gabriel Peck as he lifts the Galaxy with their win. So just wanted to shout him out. He was, of course, doing some great stuff. LAFC, back to them real quick, and SKC, they play Wednesday for a chance at hoisting another trophy. Sporting Kansas City, this is a team that beat my Philadelphia Union in front of me in an Open Cup final. They've taken the Open Cup before, but they're going to have a pretty tough task. They're going up against LAFC. They might be hitting them at the right time, though, because SKC is officially eliminated from the playoffs. The only thing that they have really going for them is this cup run. So I'm sure that they'll be kind of putting everything they can into it because this is their chance for a trophy this season. And to look back at it and say, you know what? This wasn't a failed season. So I want to get your perspective on the SKC side because let's see, they made the playoffs last year after starting off really bad. They make a run into the playoffs. They beat the 1 seed in the West, their new rival St. Louis. And this season, already eliminated by this week, but they have a chance for a cup. If they win this cup, is it a successful season for Sporting KC?
This might be a fun off season. Write this down, Jordan. SKC deep dive, because this is one of the most interesting teams I think that we've had in a lot of sports. Like I can't think of it because soccer is different because you got different tournaments that you can win and be successful without actually winning, and which sounds wild in the league, but God, this is so interesting to me because if you look at their roster, right, it's not anything that really jumps out at you anymore, right? I think all their primes are kind of behind them. You got Alan Polito, Johnny Russell. You could even make an argument that some of the players like Memo Rodriguez and them that had good moments in this league, those are behind them. Willie Agata, like I don't know, like it's just a weird collection, and I have a very hard time, Daniel Shalhoub. Like, I just have a really hard time blaming Peter Vermees when he had a healthy roster, when he had a younger roster. He was easily, and they were easily one of the staples in this league. Ownership's not really done anything, right? We've talked about this multiple times where we get excited about an SKC signing, but it's usually only one, and it usually doesn't work at the end of the day. So, you look at this team, Jordan, and we've talked about this last year. They started out as one of the worst teams in the whole league, and then they get back into a playoff spot. They bounce St. Louis out on St. Louis's home turf, but then they go and hire Merritt Paulson, and then that chaos ensues, which is wild that that's all in the same span of a year and a half now that we're in almost 2 years now, where all of this has happened. They've gone from high to low, and I mean, if you fired Peter Vermees and he went elsewhere, you'd regret it. But also,
I don't think they would. I don't think they'd regret it at this point. It's kind of like a thanks for the memories, but we got to evolve. It's almost like a Patriots Bill Belichick thing.
I guess.
It's like we have to move on at a certain point. We can't continue to have this one guy be in control. It's starting to become more and more, I think, realistic because we're starting to see a lot of those figures leave their teams. Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, right? Like these figures that were always like the head of that team are starting to leave their teams, either getting fired or actually moving on. I don't know if Peter Vermees does get picked up right away. we're seeing Bruce Arena sitting on the sideline right now. I think at a certain point, some of these teams are going to end up wanting to try to kick tires on younger coaches, or, I could see like a Vermees at a USL team, right? Like, it hasn't gone well recently. Now, if they win this trophy, maybe there's a little bit that, but he kind of burnt some of his goodwill in the offseason with, trying to hire, Merritt Paulson, right? And that was a whole thing that ended up having to, not Merritt Paulson, what's his name? Gavin Wilkinson, right? From Portland. Trying to, that whole thing's been a mess. He burnt some goodwill there. I just don't know if they would actually end up regretting it, because what's the high of this team? I have to look at previous standings now to figure out the last time they were actually like a threat, because it's been a bit.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. This roster surely isn't gonna. This roster could be coached by anybody, and it would not.
But he's the one that's in charge of bringing in people.
To an extent, though, like their ownership's gonna be the one that signs off on. But like, I don't know. He's the longest tenured coach. He had some tremendous success. I think it's 4 titles that he has. It is interesting.
He doesn't have 4 titles, if you mean MLS Cups. I mean,
no, like 4 cups. Sorry, not MLS Cups. Yeah, major titles. I guess you could.
The last time they were in like a high, like they were 4th place in Major League Soccer total, was 2021. So we're looking at like 3 straight years of not being really relevant. Before that, they were really consistent, but the squad is just getting so old. It seems like he is just not really keen to make big changes to it. I mean, yeah, maybe it's the ownership thing, but I feel like he's in control of it. It just seems like whatever they're doing is not working.
And he's not. I mean, he's not one that will change, if you put it that way. He's more old school. He's set in his ways. I think that, he's got that ability. I don't know. We're getting some kind of storm warning out here. Hold on.
All right. No, what I was going to say is they need a complete rebuild. And if this, in that case, I would rather just maybe get a complete rebuild through somebody else, right? Like, what's the point of continuing to stick with him if you're going to have to burn it all down anyway? Is kind of my thought. It seems like the league has changed significantly since Vermees has started managing.
So do you think he is like Belichick? He's just one of those old school heads that has to kind of, I could see that. I can see it.
Or at least a new team that he would be able to kind of get a new message in. I just think like this, it almost seems like they're clawing on to their golden days, trying to keep this team together for another run. And it's time to put it out, behind the barn.
To think he almost recruited Ronaldo to come.
Yeah, if that's to be believed, right?
That would have been. Oh, could you imagine the tabloids there would be? Do they have tabloids in SKC? That's kind of mean.
Okay, let's take a look at if the playoffs started today. I think this would be a fun thing to talk about. If the playoffs started today, our wildcard teams would be the Portland Timbers facing off against Minnesota, and Toronto facing off against Philadelphia Union. The winner of those games would go on to face the LA Galaxy or Inter Miami. So conceivably, for the Union to have a shot here, they'd have to go through Toronto, which they could do, and then have to go up against Miami. when it comes to the second seeds, we would have FC Cincinnati hosting NYCFC in a best of 3, and RSL would be playing against Vancouver Whitecaps. The third seeds, the Crew, would be facing off against Charlotte FC, with the Rapids facing Seattle Sounders. The 4 seeds would be LAFC facing off against Houston, and the Red Bulls facing off against Orlando. So out of those matchups, would you feel pretty good going up against the Red Bulls?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously it would be nice to get home field, and Orlando's making it as hard as possible on themselves. But I mean, I'm looking at the way that Red Bull have played lately. I would think Orlando is the hotter team out of the two, and I really do. I've got a lot of confidence in Orlando right now. I think a lot of the Eastern Conference teams have struggled, and I think Orlando has been one of the best. And again, man, if they get home field advantage playing here in Inter, it would just be it'd be hard to beat them at home if they're playing the way that they are. And I do think that Red Bull would struggle. I mean, Red Bull, they haven't won since their game against Cincinnati. They won that 3-1 back on July 20th. They haven't won since. So they've kind of been in a weird free fall. And had Orlando been better throughout the year, then this wouldn't even be a conversation where Red Bull would be down there hanging out with Charlotte and them, and Orlando would be up a little bit higher. Looking at this though, Jordan, like those teams in the East that have gotten so far ahead of the rest of the teams, you just wonder how much better they can be. And then also, do teams below that threshold of Columbus, can they compete with those 3 teams? That'd be my ultimate concern. I think Cincinnati, yes, but that's more to do with their injuries than it does with where they stand. Right now, I just look at them. I don't think they're number 2 seed with just the injuries and the way they played. But
so the way it would work too is best of 3. It goes high seed host, lower seed host, high seed host if needed. So I wonder if I'd be able to get to, like, if Philly gets in there, if I'd be able to get to a Philly Inter Miami game. That'd be cool. And those games would start Saturday, October 26th and go to November 10th for the best of 3. The wildcard matches would be October 23rd, which is a Wednesday. So that's where we are with a lot of these teams. So Orlando, right now, let's see what the standings are. How far off are they from jumping? They can jump New York Red Bulls easily. I think the top 3 are pretty locked in. Miami, Cincy, Columbus are pretty locked in here. New York and Orlando are both 12 and 13 points behind Columbus. And Columbus has a game in hand as well. So we're looking at those 3 being pretty locked in. So for your maneuverability here, you're looking at a lot of options to be moving from 4th to 7th. That's a 3-point gap from 4th to 7th. So this stuff can change at any moment. But that 1 seed is pretty locked in. The wildcard teams, I feel like, are almost pretty locked in. I know I said that last week too, but what I'm saying is 36 points for Toronto and Philly. They are 5 points off of that 7th spot. So I feel like Toronto and Philly, or somebody right below them, are going to be the wildcard teams. It's going to be, they would need to rattle off some wins here, and they only have 4 games left. Toronto only has 3 games left, and they would have to get about 6 to 7 points, even with nobody else above them getting points. So that's going to be really close. Those teams are going to be almost locked in the East, which again means for Philly and Toronto, your pathway would have to go through Miami, whoever wins that game. So that's going to be a tough thing, especially in a one-off. You have a good shot in a best of 3. Are you gonna beat Miami 2 times? You need to beat them twice. That's gonna be tough. That's gonna be tough, no matter who it is. I think Philly would have the better shot, just because their goal differential is better. They score more goals. They don't give up as much goals, especially since they've kind of righted their defense a bit. They've been doing a lot better. Toronto would absolutely lose to Miami, probably in 2 games. Their goal differential is just abysmal with -17, which is the highest in that top 9, Logan. Toronto would just be happy to be there at that point.
I really do. This sounds wild. A hot take from Logan right here. I would say outside of Columbus, Philadelphia would pose the biggest problem for Inter Miami. Like 1 through 9, they are the team besides Columbus
I think
that I feel.
Cincy does have a.
I don't know with their defense though. Like their defense has
Yeah,
been
right now
dinged.
that's true.
Yeah,
Right now, yeah, because they did beat Miami like 6-1 at
yeah,
one point, right? But then Miami
right.
beat them pretty bad another time. So
Yeah. I don't have confidence that Cincinnati would be able to stop a high octane attacking front in the playoffs. Especially in 3 games. Like I don't see
yeah,
Cincinnati
true.
competing with if they had to have 3 games for some reason against Miami, which they won't. But if they did, I
Oh
still
yeah,
think
they'll be fine. Yeah.
Philadelphia
They'll just have
would.
the one
Yeah,
off. Yeah.
they'd have to completely the catastrophic. No, but like I do. I for some reason I just feel like Philadelphia's defense, if they come out to play, still have one of the best defenses in the whole league, even though stats might not show it this year because Andre Blake's missed a lot of that time. So people forget, man, how good defensively Philadelphia can be. And dude, the last 2 games they played, it's like it's like they've come out with some kind of vengeance and just have stormed the castle. I think it was 9-1 last 2 matches that they've played. I think they've outscored opponents 9-1.
Yeah,
So
yeah. They gave up 1 goal to New York City, but they scored 5, and
right,
they scored 4 against DC. Yeah, so
right.
it's 9-1 for Philly. If we're looking at the form guide for Philly, they've rattled off 5 wins in their last 7 games. 2 of those losses to Columbus and Miami, though. So
Yeah.
those are some big playoff teams. They're teams that they've beat: the Revs, Nashville, Red Bulls, NYCFC, and DC. 2 of those are playoff teams, albeit not playing at their best right now, the 2 New York teams. So it's tough to tell, like, okay, did they get right because of the teams they're playing? Or, what else do we have? And they have a tough final schedule, Philadelphia. They have to go up against they have Atlanta, which I would guess is going to finish 2-2, because I feel like Atlanta's games have been 2-2 the last few times. The last two times. Then they go at Orlando, at Columbus, and Cincinnati is how they finish. There's a chance, like I said, Philly doesn't even finish in the wild card spot because of those final games that they're playing. But who knows? I'm really curious to see how that'll shape up for them. But you would think Miami is going to beat either Toronto and Philly and move on to the next round. Which wouldn't be Orlando Red Bulls, I don't think. I think they would then face the next lowest seed. But like if NYCFC won, I feel like they would play NYC. I don't know if this is the full actual bracket or not. But yeah, so we'll see how that goes. Over in the West, Portland, Minnesota, I feel like that'd be a really cool matchup in the wild card. And then, Portland just beat LA Galaxy. There's a chance for an upset in that best of 3 right there then. If Portland gets through Minnesota in this scenario, if they started today. That'd be an interesting best of three. Galaxy and Portland. Portland just beat them. Portland's been a pretty high octane team at times this season. Galaxy have been pretty high octane. They've been scoring goals. Like, this would be, I think, a really fun matchup in the playoffs. So
those Western Conference games are gonna be. Those are such good games. Like, I'm looking forward to that because the Eastern Conference, there are some really weak teams in the playoffs. I feel like in the West, I think anybody could win. Like, it's gotten that like competitive amongst the Western Conference because like I really do. I think that Portland, like you said, could challenge the Galaxy. I think Houston could run through LAFC. Seattle and Colorado, that might be one of the highlight games there. Like, that might be the game to watch, or games to watch, I guess.
I just want to point out, too, the last two games that Portland and LA have played each other have been in the last 2 months, and they lost. Portland lost to the Galaxy 3-2 and then beat Galaxy 4-2. So they've been high-scoring games. Both have each gotten the upper hand against each other. So that would be a lot of fun. But we'll see. All right, I guess let's take a look at the rest of the games that are coming up this week. Like I said before, we have 3 finals on Wednesday. Those are Columbus and Club America in the Campeones Cup final. That's at 7:30. 10 o'clock, Vancouver and Toronto in the Canadian Championship final. And then the U.S. Open Cup, LAFC and SKC facing off at 10:30. That's free on Apple TV since they started picking up the rights for the U.S. Open Cup. Saturday, we have Cincy and LAFC at 7:30. That should be a really fun match. DC Columbus, Miami Charlotte, Montreal San Jose, New England Nashville, New York, New York. That's right. The Red Bulls and NYCFC facing off against each other in a Hudson River derby. Philadelphia and Atlanta. Then at 8:30, we have Austin RSL, Chicago, Toronto, Dallas, Orlando, Minnesota, Colorado, and St. Louis, SKC. Then at 10:30, Seattle and Houston, and Vancouver and Portland facing off. And that is it for the weekend. There's no Sunday game. Then, Logan, what's your match of the week this weekend?
Oh, there's not really like great games. I guess I'll go even LAFC and Cincinnati's kind of lackluster.
That's lackluster? That's my pick.
I don't know. I just feel like those are two struggling teams, like two teams that are not at their best currently. I think Cincinnati's a lot better, I think, right now than LAFC. But I don't know. Like, they're both not doing it for me right now. So I'm gonna go with Seattle Houston. I think that could be a really fun matchup. And I do think, Jordan, as we get closer and closer to decision day, we just talked about the bracket. I mean, there are only 2 points that separate 5th through 7th. And LAFC has a game in hand, and they're a point above Houston 49. So between 4th and 7th, there's 3 points, but LAFC has the advantage with a game in hand. But Vancouver has a game in hand, so Vancouver could very well win their game in hand, be at 49 points. Like, this is real messy here in this midsection of the Western
Messi is on Miami.
Yes, but this could be really kind of a scramble here to the end. I actually think Colorado's playing the best football out of all of them except for the Galaxy. So I think Colorado could even make some moves. Like, this Western Conference is compact from 2 all the way down. I would even throw it all the way down to the 9th spot with Minnesota, because Minnesota could cause some issues maybe for Portland, or Portland causes some issues for Vancouver. Like, I don't know. It just feels like the Western Conference right now isn't what it's going to be. It's not quite set. Whereas I feel like the Eastern Conference is kind of set. There's only a couple teams I feel are really battling for spots. But this Western Conference is wide open, and give Houston credit where credit is due. I didn't think that they had much of a chance this year with all the injuries that they started out the season with, right? And they really struggled without Ache Ache to start the year, and now they look like one of the more formidable teams in the West. They really defend well, and so does Seattle. So it might not be high scoring, but I think it could be one of the best games. It's a 5 and 6 seed going at it, and possibly home field advantage on the line here as we get down to 4 games left for each of them.
Yeah, you mentioned Colorado. They have 4 wins in their last 5. So they've been really, that game against SKC in the midweek is their last loss. LAFC, you said they've been struggling. They haven't won a game since before League's Cup in the league. And that was against Seattle, 3-0. Since then, they've lost to Houston. They drew with Houston. They lost to Galaxy. They drew with Austin, and they lost to Dallas. So they've really been struggling a bit. And they'll be going up against Cincinnati, who is undefeated since they lost to Miami on August 24th, coming back from League's Cup. They've won against Montreal, drew against the Crew, beat Minnesota, and drew with Nashville. So we'll see. That's my pick. I think that those two are very interesting, and it's going to be looking at, can LAFC. It also depends narratively what happens Wednesday, right? But can LAFC, like we said earlier, get right? And can they, keep that 4th spot in the West? It seems like they're really struggling to do that. Like I said, they haven't won in the league since before League's Cup. We're talking about 2 months ago was their last win in MLS. That's been tough for LAFC when they're so used to, frankly, dominating. Okay. Anything else before we go?
I guess we can talk a little bit U.S. men's national team. Christian Pulisic scored for
another
Milan,
goal.
and I wanted to ask you, because I think it's a fun, and it might take us here to the time that we usually shoot for. I wanted to ask you, do you feel like playing with and for Pochettino again, do you feel like Christian is finally starting to feel like what we really thought he was going to do for the U.S. men's national team, and means of that by like the club standard? Because I feel like Chelsea, he doesn't get a fair shake. He had injuries, whereas I feel like in Milan, like he's really started to flourish there, and I feel like we're starting to really see Captain America himself really start to come into his own. So do you think, one, that it's beneficial that he's got a coach like Pochettino who can take him to that next level? Do you think he takes him to that next level? And then how impressed are you, especially because you really do keep a really good eye on Christian? Do you feel like he's ready to take that next step? And he's not the most extroverted captain, but do you feel like he's ready to take that next step to take the U.S. to where they need to be? Because they need somebody. They need that person, because I'm not sure Tyler Adams can stay on a field long enough. They need that guy. Do you think Christian is finally that guy?
I think he's always been that guy when we're talking about like passion and like I remember how he was in 2017 trying to get to the 2018 World Cup. He looked like he was trying to do it all himself. He's definitely playing in the best club form of his career. That's what I would say. Like this, he's been so good at Milan last year and this year. He's one of their best players. He is scoring goals. He's contributing goals. And it's good to see him finally getting a fair shake out of club for a bit. And that's just kind of like why I would advise anybody against going to Chelsea anyway. We see it all the time at Chelsea as somebody that watches Chelsea. They sign these young players and then they just send them out on loans, or, part of it also is the fans. The fans expect winning all the time. So when they aren't, they start looking for players that they feel are not given at all. Plus, there's the American bias, right? So that's kind of what he's had to go through. I think it'll be nice for him having Pochettino. I don't know if it'll change much in the national team stuff for him. He's been doing well for us on the national team stage since he's gone to Milan, actually. Now that he's getting more consistent playing time and scoring goals, I feel like he's shown up in some of those games more than he had at Chelsea when he was, he would come here and it would feel like a relief for him. But also then I feel like he feels the pressure here a bit of being the guy, right? I think he's kind of gotten past that now. So that'll be great for him. Having a manager that is that quality, I think, will be just a boost for everyone, honestly. But I'm very happy to see what he's doing in Milan, and I really want to get a Christian Pulisic AC Milan jersey.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I had to ask you because I know you've been watching him pretty closely. Jordan, in his last 5 matches for Milan, he's got a goal versus Inter Milan in Serie A, goal versus Liverpool in the Champions League, a goal and assist versus Venezia, an assist versus Lazio, and a goal versus Parma. This is the first time in his career he's been involved in a goal in 5 straight matches. For the first time ever, he's been involved in that aspect. So.
Wow.
I was like, man, I saw that tweet earlier, and I was like, I better say that because I was like, I want to ask Jordan if we got time. Another thing that came up on the timeline, Jordan, is it does sound like Trent, not Trent. I about said Trent Arnold, Alexander Arnold. No, the good form of Trent. It sounds like Jordan Jedi might be making his way to Liverpool. I know you've always been hesitant about that, but what are your? I just want to get your thoughts on that. If you pro that, against that, I feel like he's one of those guys that personally, I feel like if we had to select somebody to go and play for Liverpool, I actually do think he fits their system. I think he plays right away. I think he actually is a good fit. I personally think he's one that can handle it. He's played in Premier League with Fulham and has been very good in Premier League. I think he's deserved that next step. But you and I, and as we should, I think we're very hesitant to say that they'll be successful because of the past that the U.S. men's national team has had. But I just want to get your thoughts on Jedi as a Liverpool player.
Well, it seems like they've been tracking him for a while, right? I feel like these rumors, were popping up over the last couple of years. So I don't know. Maybe it'd be a good move. I am hesitant just because anytime a player does go to one of these big clubs, it ends up kind of backfiring. Especially in England. But, whatever. I mean, like, I don't doubt his ability. I don't know if I want to deal with the fans being like, oh, get him off the team, all the time.
Yeah. No, I think there's hesitancy, but I really do. If there's one player that I had to pick, and the way that he's played with the U.S. men's national team over the last couple of years, he's just really impressed me. And I know Guardiola's talked about him. I know that Klopp's talked about him. Pochettino's now mentioned him. Like, I just feel like if I had to pick one player who's steady enough, who I don't think really it consumes him because he's had real success in the Premier League, I think it's not much of a different step. I think Liverpool's got some pressure on them, but I don't think it's ridiculous amount of pressure. Say he go to, and in Manchester United is another team that's been mentioned for Jedi, where that I think would be a complete disaster. I don't want anybody on our team going anywhere near Manchester United. I just feel like that's a bad idea. Just because them and Chelsea, sorry, Jordan. I don't really want those two clubs messing with our U.S. men's national team players just because they've just not been very good. And they seem to just destroy careers rather than help them. So I don't know. I just wanted to get your thoughts on those because those were two that I definitely saw and kind of paid attention to this weekend. Was Pulisic having some success and Jedi Robinson having some real success and looking like he's one of the best backs in the Premier League, Jordan, which means he's one of the best backs in the world, which is really crazy to think that we have a player that we don't really ever talk about much, but you and I love him, how well he's done and contribute with U.S. men's national team. And continuously we've heard people kind of put him down, but I feel like he's a top back in the world. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it'll be great to see the Nations League. is going to be kicking off soon, I think in November, and they said the first match is going to be in St. Louis, so that'll be Mauricio Pochettino's first like legit game.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of forgot about Nations League. That's
Me
kind
too.
of a big test.
Yeah.
We kept saying Gold Cup next summer, but he does have some meaningful games that he will be able to coach, and we'll be able to see what his teams are, so that'll be fun. Okay. Well, at Stateside Show for all of our social media, you can contact us there, statesideshow@gmail.com. Thank you all for watching or listening along. We'll catch you next time when we continue our final stretch into the Major League Soccer playoffs. We are less than a month till decision day, and we'll see how many more teams are able to clinch on Saturday. We'll see who wins U.S. Open Cup on Wednesday. Logan, I'm going to ask you, does LAFC get the cup monkey off of their back, or does SKC pull this one out?
Gosh, I'm gonna say LAFC finally get their monkey off the back. So I think they win it. I think they win a U.S. Open Cup. I just feel like SKC's not ready for what LAFC is about to throw at them.
No, I agree. Actually, I have LAFC winning as well. This will be their best time. They're going up against Sporting KC. Yeah. It's a U.S. Open Cup. Like, come on, this is your best chance for a trophy this season. Go out there and do it, and then maybe put that into getting into the playoffs and finishing top 4 and getting a playoff run going. But we'll see. So we both have LAFC winning the Open Cup. Again, you can watch it on Apple TV for free. Thank you all for watching. We'll catch you next time.